Prada L'Homme L'Eau. What does it smell like? Is it as good as the fantastic Prada L'Homme? Why did I buy my second bottle of it, and is it worth it? I'm gonna talk about the scent, its performance, compliments and mass appeal and more. And I'm also gonna compare it a bit with Prada L'Homme and also share my thoughts on some of the alternatives to Prada L'Homme L'Eau. Before I begin, if you love smelling good, then please drop a like on this video. Thank you, I really do appreciate it, and make sure you hit that subscribe. I basically upload videos every single week and you will smell good for sure. So let's start by taking a look at the bottles, and as you can see, they are pretty much identical except for the back of the bottles. So let's start with the opening, and as soon as you spray it on, it definitely feels quite familiar. And if you ever put your nose to the OG Prada L'Homme, you are definitely going to recognize some of its powdery freshness right in the opening when you spray Prada L'Homme L'Eau on. It's a powdery fresh opening, but its powderiness, at least to my nose, is of the sort of an Aryan-like kind. You get iris, a bit of sort of a citrusy freshness as well, and definitely quite a prominent dose of ginger. I'm gonna do a proper full-on comparison between Prada L'Homme L'Eau and Prada L'Homme, but just to compare, I'm gonna spray some of the OG on as well. And I mean, a clear difference if you compare, at least to my nose, if you compare the original L'Homme to Prada L'Homme L'Eau, the OG definitely has a more prominent kind of spicy freshness. There's definitely a bit of a spicy freshness in Prada L'Homme L'Eau as well, but I do feel it's the spiciness that is quite a clear difference between these two. I mean, we're basically talking about nuances here, but I do feel there's a bit of a difference when it comes to its spicy freshness. I also feel the powderiness comes across slightly differently. Both of these have an airy kind of powderiness to them, and both are powdery fresh, but I do feel that the OG L'Homme has a slightly warmer kind of powdery freshness, whereas L'Homme L'Eau is in a way slightly sort of a colder and sharper. But here's the thing, up in the air, most people will definitely not feel a massive difference between these two. The opening of Prada L'Homme L'Eau is basically a mix of powdery freshness, a bit of citrusy freshness and spicy freshness. The heart of Prada L'Homme L'Eau is basically where it's sort of an airy kind of powderiness starts to come together. It's still a fresh and clean and light kind of powderiness, but I do feel that the whole thing starts to come together and gets a bit fuller and rounder while still being of the light and airy kind. The heart of it is also when you start picking up on a light kind of woodiness, but it's still not a heavy or deep kind of scent in any way. There's also something at the heart of it, I'm not sure exactly what it is, that brings it really nice, super soft kind of sweetness. L'Homme L'Eau is definitely not a sweet scent in any way, but there's a really nice soft kind of sweetness cutting through. The drawdown of L'Homme L'Eau is where everything starts to become even more sort of rounder and fuller while still being quite light. It's almost like if you would filter off a bit of the top and freshness and brightness and sort of a sharpness, making the whole thing rounder and fuller, less intensely fresh and bright, while the whole thing is still fresh and clean. The woody side of it that started to come through a bit in the mids is even more prominent when it starts to go into the drawdown. However, while you definitely can pick up on a woody side in L'Homme L'Eau, I do not feel it's overly prominent in any way. And the drawdown of L'Homme L'Eau, at least to me, is basically a mix of powdery freshness that's less intensely fresh and bright than it was in the opening, together with a bit of soft woodiness, and the whole thing has a really nice soft amberness to it. And to me, it's a fresh, clean and overall light kind of scent. Its freshness, however, if you compare it to most other fresh scents, is definitely different, and that is mostly thanks to its powdery freshness. I'm gonna do a proper comparison of the OG L'Homme and Prada L'Homme L'Eau, so make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on that one. However, I do feel there's a slight difference in the dry down if you compare these two. On my skin at least, it takes longer for L'Homme to dry down, and in the dry down, L'Homme, at least on my skin, it definitely feels like a more nuanced and more fresh kind of scent. Both of these have a bit of soft woodiness in the dry down. However, I do feel that L'Homme L'Eau dries down faster. Its woody side definitely comes through faster if you compare it to L'Homme, and its freshness starts to get softer faster if you compare it to L'Homme. So let's talk about the vibes here. Prada L'Homme L'Eau, at least to my nose, is fresh and clean in what I think is a really classy and elegant kind of way. However, this to me is classy and elegant done with a casual kind of feel to it. I'm gonna get to usage in a short while, but what I mean with that is that this is a fresh and clean scent with a classy and elegant vibe to it, but done in a way that it's just as perfect with a suit and tie as it is with a really nice white crisp shirt and blue jeans. And just like with the original L'Homme, there's definitely a seductive and alluring vibe to L'Homme L'Eau. So the performance on my skin is definitely above average. I do not feel, however, that this is something that is strong. And on my skin, the OG L'Homme definitely lasts longer with better projection. But I do not feel L'Homme L'Eau is that far behind when it comes to performance. So on my skin at least, it's definitely above average, but definitely not strong. So let's talk about compliments and mass appeal. If you ever worn the OG L'Homme, then you know what an incredibly likable and mass appealing scent that one is. L'Homme L'Eau is pretty much equally mass appealing, and it's definitely a very likable kind of scent. So having gone through one bottle and now a bit into this, here's my experience of wearing this. Most people will most definitely enjoy getting a whiff of Prada L'Homme L'Eau. However, pretty much all of the positive reactions will come when people are a bit closer to you. Since the scent cloud is not the biggest one, they do need to be a bit closer to you in order to pick up on it. So let's talk a bit about usage, so like seasons and occasions. When it comes to seasons, this is definitely the kind of powdery scent that I feel you can use throughout the year to pretty much any occasion. And I do reach for both the OG and L'Homme L'Eau throughout the year, even on summer days. And if you never tried using the kind of powdery freshness that you get from the OG or L'Homme L'Eau on summer and summer nights, then you really gotta try it out. And just like with the original L'Homme, I do not feel there's any occasion that this kind of soft freshness and soft powderiness doesn't work for. Wear it dressed to the nines in a suit and tie, going to like a formal or special occasion, and you will both smell and look good. Or like my own favorite, just a nice pair of jeans and a really crisp white shirt. That combo with this, at least to me, is absolutely perfect. Work, school, gym, going out, going on a date, it really doesn't matter. I do feel this one just works. So who is Prada L'Homme L'Eau for? I'm gonna try and make this as simple as I can. If you know that you enjoy a bit of powderiness in fragrances and usually enjoy fresh kind of fragrances, then you will most likely enjoy this. And in my experience, most people do enjoy getting a whiff of this, except for those who don't like powdery fragrances. So if you like a softer and more airy kind of powdery and fresh scent, then you will most likely enjoy this. And I do feel that if you're someone who enjoys the OG L'Homme, then you will most likely enjoy L'Homme L'Eau as well. If you dislike any kind of powderiness in fragrances, and if you usually stay away from fresh scents, then this is definitely not for you. So let's quickly go through some of the alternatives to Prada L'Homme L'Eau, and the first one is obviously the OG L'Homme. It has a different kind of spicy freshness for sure, but I do feel overall that these two are quite similar, but you could say in a way that L'Homme L'Eau is the sort of a slimmed down version of L'Homme. The overall scent is definitely quite similar, but there's a slight twist to its freshness, to its woodiness, to its spiciness, and how fast it dries out. I'm gonna link to my Prada L'Homme review somewhere up here and in the description below, so make sure you check that one out. Armani Cold Parfum is also a fantastic alternative that's a mix of freshness, powderiness with a bit of woodiness and vanilla. Cold Parfum's powderiness has what I think is a really nice sort of airy quality to it. Its woody side definitely makes these two different, and the vanilla in Cold Parfum definitely makes a difference. I think Cold Parfum's powdery freshness together with that sort of a signature Armani Cold Vanilla is absolutely fantastic, and this is one of my fragrances for life. Moving on to an alternative from the fantastic Givenchy Gentleman line. The EDT Intense is the most versatile of them all, and I do think this is a great choice for everyday use. It's a mix of spicy freshness, a fresh and light dose of iris, and a woody dry down. It definitely has a bit of that sort of a core gentleman scent in it, but it has a fresh side to it, and I do feel its powderiness is of the lighter and less intense kind, which makes it quite versatile. Moving on to an alternative that's also a mix of powderiness and freshness, but that's very different if you compare it to L'Homme L'Eau. You have Galloway, and Galloway is like very simplified, a mix of citrusy freshness with a spicy kick. You get a gorgeous dose of floral freshness from Orange Blossom. It has a prominent dose of iris and a very noticeable dose of clean musk. Galloway is incredibly underrated and also, at least to my nose, incredibly unique. So what are my final thoughts on Prada L'Homme L'Eau? How am I going to rate it from 1 to 10? And do I think it's as good as the OG L'Homme? So I think in a way that Prada L'Homme L'Eau is like a slimmed down version of the OG L'Homme done with a bit of a twist. I do not feel there's a massive difference between these two, but there's a difference. Is it worth getting L'Homme L'Eau if you already have L'Homme? I think it really comes down to how much you absolutely love this kind of powdery fresh scent. If you're a bit like me in that you absolutely love powdery fresh scents, then I do not feel that it's redundant to own both. But with that said, I do feel for most it is redundant to have both. I do think Prada L'Homme L'Eau pretty much retains that epic, classy and quite unique kind of powdery freshness from the OG. But while I do think that Prada L'Homme L'Eau smells really, really good, I do not feel it's as good as the OG L'Homme, and I'm gonna give it 8.5 out of 10. So this is where I want to hear from you. How do you feel about Prada L'Homme L'Eau? Do you think this is an absolutely epic powder fresh scent? Do you feel it's mid? Do you absolutely dislike it? Let me know in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe for more, and make sure you check out my Prada L'Homme review over there.